Greetings, beautiful people, and welcome to Spirit in the Material World, your audible Eat, Pray, Love, remix with Old Bay, Sazon, Shea Butter, and Patchouli. I am your host, Jana Zinzi, also known as Jazz, and I'm so happy to welcome today's guest, Christine Joe. She is an award-winning podcast producer and soon-to-be author, an amazing business strategist dedicated to empowering Black women to thrive globally. She's a Black American with Trinidadian roots and hails from Atlanta, but now calls Valencia, Spain, home. As the creator and host of the acclaimed podcast, Flourish in the Foreign, which you should subscribe to, Christine explores the intersections of migration, Blackness, womanhood, and wellness. Her upcoming book by the same name, Flourish in the Foreign, A Black Woman's Guide to Cultivating a Life Well Lived, reimagines international living as a pathway to liberation. I love that so much. The word liberation is so strong and so important right now, offering practical insights and inspiring stories to readers to help readers redefine joy and wellness on their own terms. So we are going to get into that today. She's also a passionate advocate for women entrepreneurs and hosts retreats in Valencia that help women build sustainable, values-aligned, and location-independent businesses. And she consults on intentional global transitions, which we will definitely be getting into today, guiding individuals towards fulfilling values-driven lives abroad. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I am really excited to chat with you and get into it. So thank you.
I'm so happy you're here because a very important, popular, spicy topic amongst Black women has been, and particularly in the last 6 months after the U.S. presidential election, but I mean really even before and for years and years, because of politics and social issues here in the United States. We've been really talking about what does it mean to move out of the United States, to live abroad. And you've really built a platform and a career around supporting Black women in this space, and offering a lot of different perspectives, I think, which is super important to have these nuanced conversations. So I'm wondering if you can share your journey. How did you end up from Atlanta to Valencia, Spain? And why Spain? Why Valencia?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to try to keep it brief, but I'm a yapper, so you got to cut me off. So,
Me too.
I moved to, that's where to start. One, I always wanted to live abroad. I always wanted to live abroad ever since, ever since I was 17. Like I remember clearly having my birthday cake and everyone singing happy birthday and me looking around being like, I could live somewhere else. But it wasn't like against them. It was just like I wanna be where the other people are. And I think it's because I have Trinidadian roots, immigrant roots from my father. My grandmother, his mother, actually made the move from Trinidad to New York to work as domestic. She was the first person, and she sent back for my father and my grandfather, and everybody else then came. So I think that's important part of the story. I think also my mother's side, who are Black American, but I always call them a small nomadic tribe of women that had no problem getting up and going from New York to Texas to California to Colorado to Atlanta, whatever needs to happen, whatever the move was, they were making the move. And so I think that spirit of immigration and just movement is in me. And so I found myself in 2017 after graduating from law school in 2013, hustling, working for a startup in Miami, returning to Atlanta, grinding as an entrepreneur, and just being like, when am I going to live my life the way I wanted to live it? Like, when am I going to make this kind of move? And so I decided to move to Spain. And I picked Spain. Goodness, why did I pick Spain? Who knows? I'll say this. In 2014, I was supposed to move to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, sight unseen for another startup. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get out of here. I went to Miami because I used to live in Miami and had a farewell party. I was like, see ya, suckers. I'll see you when I see you. Then my visa fell through. Like the company like reneged on the offer and they were like, just kidding. I was living in the city of Atlanta. I had moved to the suburbs to be with my mom to like pack up my stuff because I was moving. And I was just like, yo, this is not how my life is supposed to go. I'm supposed to be fabulous, I'm supposed to be a jet setter. And it was not, I wasn't jet setting anywhere. I was in the suburbs. And so on a whim, I just was walking a mountain by my mom's house, and I was just asking universe and God, I was like, what do you want from me? Asking is nice. I was yelling as much as I could. Well, there was like, it's a public path, so I was trying not to get like locked up and thrown into a padded room. But I was just like, what do you want from me? Like, I feel like I'm following, spirit. I'm not a traditional lawyer. I'm going my own way. I'm doing all these things, and like things are not working out for me. And a really quiet, still voice came to me and said, walk the Camino de Santiago. And I was like, no. What are you talking about? I'd only heard of that 6 months prior at a New Year's brunch with some of my friends. We got together, we were talking about bucket list items. And I had a homegirl who was like, yeah, I want to walk the Camino de Santiago. And I was like, what's that? She's like, yeah, you walk across Spain with only a backpack. And I was like, good luck, girl. That doesn't sound like fun at all. It was definitely one of those things where like, I'm so happy for you. Like, I don't know. And so when it came to me, it was very strange because I was like, I didn't want to do that, but it was something that wouldn't leave me and dogged me for like 3 days in a way that I've never experienced again, and I hadn't experienced prior to that. And so I felt compelled to like look it up, and I looked it up, and this is in 2014, so it wasn't as popular as it is now, and didn't have all these websites and all these services. It was just like this this janky forum, and I was like, what is this? And I look at it and they're like, yeah, you walk across Spain for 30 something days. I was like, oh no. All of the insecurity, all of the excuses, like, oh, I'm just a woman, I'm feeble, I can't be doing this. I scroll down and there's this woman, this, grandma. She's like, I'm 85 years old and this is the 15th Camino. And I'm like, oh no, I can't have abuela, like play me to my face. Like, this is crazy. And so I just felt like, okay, I'll investigate it and this feeling will go away. And it didn't. I went to REI. I expected them to be like, girl, no. I mean, I know they're obviously they're there to sell you things, but I also trust the REI people because I feel like they be telling you stuff, right? They're like, you're gonna do it. This is perfect for you, and da da da. And I got outfitted and everything I needed, and I was just like insane. There was, and at the time in Atlanta, there was a captain of like the Camino Santiago Club in Atlanta, and I was like, what? I messaged him and I was expecting him to be like, no, you shouldn't do it. This is crazy. Da, da, da. He had me meet him. He sent me the address. The address was a hospital. He had me meet him in the OR waiting room. He was waiting for his ex-wife to have this surgery. And he was like, I'm so glad you're doing this. Took off the I guess it's a St. James cross necklace off his neck, put it on mine, gave me a handful of euros and gave me a whole packing list. And I just thought to myself, Christine, you be asking for signs and I don't know what else you want. Like, this man is in the waiting room waiting for his ex-wife to do this surgery. He was like, no, come on down, you need this. Like, you come on and get this. And I was like, and that was in July of 2014. And I left and I landed in France to start the Camino in August of 2014, not even a full month. And I cried every single day until I mean, even when I got to France, I cried. And I'm not a crier. My mom, because I was staying with her, she was like, you don't have to do this. She was very confused. She was like, you do not have to do this. But I didn't
Yeah.
because I just felt compelled, and I feel very grateful that the type of mother that I have, she instilled deep confidence in myself and to trust myself in everything that I do. So I'm the first person in my family on both sides to ever go to law school, graduate. I was the first Black woman president of my law school class. I was the
Yeah.
first person to get awarded the degree on graduation. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be a lawyer. And she was like, and she let me be. She let me be, right? So I say all that to say I walked the Camino Santiago. It was a life affirming trip. It's not it's very much like any type of spiritual journey.
Yeah.
I try not to say healing journey because I think it's overused. And I think
Mhm.
also sometimes people use it as a crutch to always be healing. And I'm like, you don't always gotta be healing, girl. You could just be enjoying your
Yeah.
life. But it's a spiritual journey. Like any spiritual journey, it's going to make you confront yourself
Mm.
and ask the questions that need to be asked. And so I cried a lot. I lost some toenails. They came
Ooh.
back, but I lost them. And by the time, I started on the French side of the Pyrenees, I ended up on the Atlantic side, Atlantic coast of Spain in on the beach. And by the time I got there, I finally realized what they were talking about when they're like, it's not the destination, it's the journey. The
Mm.
Capricorn. So I was like, I don't give a heck about the journey. I want to get to the things and accomplishments. That was a reframe for me because I realized, oh, I get what they mean. It is about their journey. But more than that, I realized that I can do anything
Oh,
and
shit.
not in a bravado type of way, but just in a if I lean in the direction I want to go and I'm
Hmm.
consistent, things will be brought up to me that I have to face that are going to help strengthen me and also clear the path so that I can get to that destination. But I can do it, I can handle it.
I
And
love that.
so
That's so
I
powerful.
did that. And,
Incredible.
I saw a lot of Spain, and that's when I was like, oh, I'll move here, instead. And so 3 years later, I moved to Spain. And yeah, that's all she wrote. I thought I was gonna stay for a year, maybe two. It'll be 8 in
What?
August. Girl, I don't know. What
Did you
am I
move?
doing it?
Did you move to Valencia? Oh, like was that just like you came to Valencia? Were there other places that you went? And you also said that it took you 3 years from that time of doing that trek. And that trek is so fascinating. I love how it was very spirit led. You know, that you were like, oh, I asked for these signs and I'm listening and I'm receiving these answers. So I'm choosing actively to listen to the messages that I'm getting and to act on it, even if it seems absolutely bonkers and completely out of, the realm of possibility or what we think is possible for ourselves. And I can only imagine what 30 days hiking, that spiritual
33,
journey.
34. Yeah.
And were you by yourself?
I mean, I went by myself, but you're
Okay,
never really alone in the world,
for sure, for
And
sure.
the Camino Frances, that route is was always very popular. So there's
Mm.
always people with you, but yeah, you're walking by yourself. Yeah.
Wow. And were there did you just sleep outside? Like, I'm so fascinated by this.
No, girl, I'm not outdoorsy like that. Which people they don't believe me because they're like, but you do this, now you hike. And I'm like, I'm not outdoorsy, which is crazy because I have a bunch of outdoorsy friends because I did the
Mhm.
Camino, and they'd be like, yeah, let's just go. And I'm like, I'm not like y'all. I'm not like y'all. No, I on the Camino there are hostels that are for the pilgrims because it's a pilgrimage, and they're called
Mhm.
albergues, and they range in amenities from some being very sparse, to some being like modern hostels with all the bells and whistles, and they also range in price range for
Mhm.
each day or each night that you stay there. So I stayed in albergues the entire time I was on the Camino, and it was eye opening. It was eye opening. And to your point, it did take me 3 years to actually move to Spain, and it took me 3 years because um, I didn't want. I wanted to move the way I wanted to move, and I thought I wanted to move, which was, I'd graduated from law school. I wanted to like a corporate move. I was like, I already have this business, but how could I do it abroad? I didn't really think like that. And then it just got to the point where I was just like, am I ever going to make this move? And how am I going
Mhm.
to make it? And I was in talks with a Dutch immigration attorney to consider moving to the Netherlands, which would have been disastrous for me because I am so weather sensitive. I could never have lived in the Netherlands ever in
Mhm.
my life, ever. Like that would not have worked for me. And then I had found out about the Auxiliar de Conversación, which is like a language assistant program. And I was like, I'm not a teacher. I respect teachers. I can't just be going, you can just be putting these randos in these children's classrooms and stuff like that. But I was like, all right, I'm going to sign up for it. And I signed up for it and I got it. And so that's how I moved in 2017. When I landed, I was living in Barcelona for the first month and a half. And then I moved to Logroño, which is in the La Rioja region in the central north part of Spain, a very famous wine region.
Yeah.
And then I moved to Barcelona after that because La Rioja and Logroño is very cute. But I was like, it's too small. You know, I
Yeah.
had too many people being like, I saw you somewhere. And I'm like, where did you see me? Y'all can see me. You know what I mean? Like, no, I saw you in the park. And I was like, no, y'all can't talk to me like this. Okay. You can't, don't be seeing me. Um, so I moved to Barcelona where I had a partner at the time and I lived there for 3.5 years through the pandemic. And then I moved here to Valencia in 2021, in August 2021, where I've been living for the past 4 years, which has been really amazing.
That's
But
great.
I will say that the journey has not been smooth. You know, like immigration is not easy. And I had no idea because I've never immigrated anywhere. So that's one thing. And then also finding a place that really suited me. Um, Takes time because you have to know yourself. And I thought I knew myself pretty well, but you really have to get to know yourself. You're always evolving. And I just realized that Valencia was just a better fit for me. And so that's how I ended up here.
I I love that. And that's so real that it is like what is it, like Goldilocks and the Three Bears or whatever, where it's like this is like too hot, too cold, too soft, too, and that's like part of the calibration. And that's part of like the adventure, I think, of also living in different places, whether it's, in the US, or if it's in your city in different neighborhoods, or if it's different, parts of a country or different countries. I want to lift up what you were saying about things being, it wasn't smooth, because I think that a lot of the conversation is very romanticized. Like I'm grateful, deeply, 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 deeply grateful for the times that I've lived abroad. And I know that there will be more, and I try to spend time like a month at a time outside of the US. um, you know, uh, as much as possible, just to have that little like what is it? It's like a detox kind of,
Mhm.
and it's a reset, and it prepares me to like come back to the States and like be in the mix, and on this in this rhythm of the US, which is very intense and frenetic, um, frustrating. However, and what's exciting about this time is that I think more Black women are considering, like, really actually like, oh no, this might be the time for me to go, or this might be actually something I can do. But with all the freedom and the quality of life, there are challenges. So if you'd be willing to speak about what some of those challenges were, I mean, you as an entrepreneur, you were in relationships. I'm really curious, and I think that would be helpful to a lot of the listeners who I know are considering or thinking about, what does this look like in reality for me?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer in that you can have a joyful experience. An experience can bring you contentment without you needing to overly romanticize something and sell yourself a dream that end up breaking your own heart. Which is what and the reason why I stress that so much on my own podcast is that I did these things and I don't want anyone else to do them, right? So when I first moved to Spain, I was in Barcelona for the first month and a half. At this time in 2017, actually the week that I landed on a Tuesday. On Thursday, there was a terrorist attack on
Oh my
Las Ramblas de
gosh.
Catalunya, right? The
Yes.
major pathway,
Yes.
that's part of life. Terrorist
Mhm.
attacks, like
I live in
that
New Orleans.
happened,
Yes.
right?
Which is
And
unexpected.
then,
Like
right?
you wouldn't expect that here. I'm from New York, and you're like, okay, that's a thing that happens there,
And that's the thing. So that was crazy.
Mm.
And then the rhetoric for the independence movement in Catalonia really heated up. And the crazy thing is that I moved to Spain in August, but I was in Barcelona in May. And I had met up with like a pen pal that I had for a while, and he is Valenciano, but he was living in Catalonia, and then he had a friend who was Catalan. And so I was like, "What do you guys think about this independence movement?" And they were like, "No, it's nothing. You're worrying about nothing." Because I'm into geopolitics. I'm a student of history, so I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yo, it's nothing." Flash forward to August. The rhetoric starts picking up more and more and more. I'm going on my morning runs, and I was living close to Arc de Triomphe, which is close to
Mm,
the Palacio de Justicia and also the Parliament building. And so every day in August and in September, I start seeing the environment change, right?
mm,
One, it's just free and whatever, I'm running. Then there starts becoming barricades. Then there starts to have police presence. Then the police are having their guns out. Then the military coming out with these huge guns. And I was like, I don't know. I did not move from the United States to come for this. You know what I
mm.
mean?
Yes.
I leave on September 30th. On October 1st, that Sunday, was the referendum, illegal referendum, in which a lot of the images were splattered across the world where they saw, grandmas getting beaten, people being pulled out of election booths and
Mm,
things like that. That is something that you can't romanticize. People live places, people have political grievances everywhere that you go. And they're
mhm,
not going to stop because you're like, oh, wait, but I just want to drink sangria on the terraza. Like, you're living in a city that's living and breathing.
mm,
And although I have a whole thing about like assimilation, I'm not really about that. I think integration and respect is one thing, but I'm not ever trying to assimilate personally.
mhm.
Um, but you have to understand that there was this place had people and things going on before you got there. This is not Emily in Paris. Like, you're not the main character of this scenario, right? So
Yep.
that happened. I moved to Logroño, and that was really cool and interesting. Um, but I'm teaching children, and I've never taught children before. And I was like, this is fascinating. Like, at the time, none of my friends had kids. So I was like, oh my God, these little people are 2 feet tall. I'm like, this is insane. Like, why are you so small? And why are you so sticky? Like, it's all that. I worked at two different schools as their language conversationalist teacher. And one of the schools was called the immigrant school, and that was a black and brown school in the city. And
Hmm.
some of these kids were first generation, but a lot of them were not. They were second generation. And they had never had a teacher that was of any other ethnicity except for white Spanish. So when I walk in and I'm speaking perfect English, they're like, why do you speak English? Why
Wow.
do you speak English? And why are you the teacher? And what do you mean you were a lawyer? And what do you mean you've done all these things and you've seen the world, all these things? You know what I mean? And that was really important because again, if you move to some place, you romanticize it, it's basically an extractive energy. You're
Hmm.
like, everything should be about me and it should be just whatever I think it should be. That experience really rooted me in the importance that we have in reciprocity, right? We have to be in relationship with community. I didn't know at the time that those kids and those teachers needed to see me. They needed to be like, oh, Christine is here. And guess what? I'm affirming all these black and brown faces because you don't need to feel Spanish, y'all. Y'all speak French, Arabic. We had some Romanian kids. Y'all speak all these other languages plus Spanish, and now you speak English. Go off. Like,
Yes.
don't worry about being Spanish. Y'all Spanish, but don't worry about being Spanish. You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys have a lot going on. And to affirm them, that was really important part,
Mhm.
right? Because at that time when I was in Logroño, I was having this really impactful experience, but I was also floating a lot because I was still very much caught up in what my life should look like and where I should be. I
Mm.
graduated from law school. All my friends from law school are working at big law firms, making real money. That I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, wow, what else did you buy? Oh, let me just salivate. Like, I can't buy those things. the people I went to high school with are all engineers and doctors. So I was just like, and I'm living in Spain teaching. Wow. And
Mhm.
I bring that up because I think it's important that people know that when I moved abroad, I didn't move abroad with intention. I moved abroad because I was burnt out. I moved abroad because it was a long held dream and I want to do something else. And if I'm being honest, I thought, yeah, this is cool. This is interesting. This is different. This is who I am. This is my identity.
I love
Right? But that
it.
doesn't last long. That doesn't satiate you. That doesn't keep you warm at night because you have to be with yourself. And I was
Yes.
really struggling because I was like, what am I doing here? Am I wasting my time? Am I, just messing about? Like, what is this? And that was a hard pill to swallow because I had to, in that moment, especially in Logroño, I had to say, whose life are you living? And who are you performing for, Christine? You're not even posting on Instagram like that. So you're performing for people who can't even see you and you're anticipating what they're gonna think and the criticisms. What are you doing? I
Yeah.
thought you were trying to live a different life. I thought you were following the spirit that you said, I don't want to practice. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do. So what are we doing? What
Yeah.
are we going to commit to? Right.
What a
And
level of
so
self-awareness, like that stripping down. And I think it's the comparison journey, or like the comparison that, and I don't know how old you were at this time, but that also this expectation of these timelines that we're given, particularly as women, and also high achieving Black women too, like we're on sometimes on this hamster wheel where we're just like, gotta keep achieving, gotta keep, like I have these degrees, I have these things, like, and that there's I love how you talked about the like performance of it and the some level of, I don't know, people pleasing. That's, I will speak for myself, that there's a level of that, but this external validation, when, I'm willing to bet a lot of your doctor, engineer, lawyer friends were like, dang, Christine is doing it, you know what I mean? Like they might be making tons of money, but like the exchange of money and freedom, when you work in those like high intensity spaces, I'm sure that some of them were looking at you like, yo, Christine like is really like living her best life and living out loud. Meanwhile, you're just like, I'm figuring it out as I go, you know?
that's the thing. Other people romanticize my experience. And of course, that works well for me because they think I'm cool and I'm a rogue, I'm a bohemian. And they're just like, wow, Christine
Of
really does
course.
whatever the heck she wants to do and da da da. That's fine. But, that type of validation doesn't last long. I always talk about like things are either cotton candy or they're like real food. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like at some point, you got to have some real food. You got to have a protein, a carb, a fat. Like, cotton
Yeah.
candy is good, but it will dissolve instantly in your mouth, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't bring anything to you. And so I had to have that wake up call. I had to say, I own this life. This is my life. I made this decision. I have to own it. And I cannot live for anyone else. And I have to figure out what the heck am I doing here? And how am I going to make it worth my while?
Mm.
And if I'm not supposed to be here, then I need to make the next move and I can't worry about what anybody's going to say about it. And that's when I really started anchoring myself in a deeper purpose for me. I think what I was probably feeling and not being able to express was that freedom that you mentioned. I wanted to live my life on my own terms. I'm from the South. I'm Black American from the South, Caribbean. That's a lot of other people's expectations. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things going on where a lot of people would be like, and I left when I was 30. So a lot of people are like, why aren't you married? They were like, you're so cute and you're so smart. Why aren't you married? And I was like, what?
Right.
I didn't what I didn't think I was defective, but a
Right.
lot of people were like, that doesn't make any sense. Like you should be married and da da da. And I was like, it's not what I wanted. So I had to own it. And I think that's something that I have to express to your audience and anyone who's thinking about moving abroad. Moving abroad is not going to cure all that ails you, your insecurities, your hurts, your traumas, or anything. If anything, it brings it all up to the surface. I'm
Yes.
not sure the science behind that, but it does. Like, I don't know why, but I think it's because there's nothing to hide behind any familiarity,
Yes.
and there's nothing for you to be distracted by because the process of living abroad requires you, I think probably forever, but definitely in the first like 5 years, you are radically present to
Mm,
everything at all times. Everything is new and different. You're trying to translate, you're trying to understand different nuances because you're like, you said this, but your face looks like that. Now I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, you are radically present, right?
yes.
And so to utilize that for your good is how you can anchor yourself in purpose, right? I
Mhm.
always say living abroad can be a pathway to wellness. It's not necessarily a pathway to wellness, like always, but
Right.
it can be. And it's often, I think this is what I'm exploring in the book. I think it can only be a pathway to wellness if you lean into the dissonance that it creates. And through
Mm,
the dissonance, allow that to kind of amplify that radical present awareness to then utilize conscious decision making to plant seeds of the life that you want to live and then to cultivate them, because that's really the gift of living abroad, is that you're in a different society, you are in society but you're not necessarily of society, and no matter how much you want to be integrated or assimilated into society, whether you're on the continent or if you're in Europe, everyone's going to be like, you're other. It don't matter. And I
right.
wish people would understand that too. And they never want to hear me when I say that. I try to bring other people who have been on the continent to tell them, and they're like, no, I don't want to hear that. And I'm like, all right, well, don't.
You're gonna
But
find out.
you'll find out. But that's a gift. It's a
Yeah.
gift to be othered in this different space and not your home space, right?
Mm,
If you're othered in your home space, that's a deep injury. You're othered in this other space, in this foreign space. It gives you the room to make decisions. People just want you to respect the culture and abide by the laws, pay your taxes, and that's it. Okay. And
mhm.
everything else, they're like, I don't know, that's weird. I guess because you're a foreigner. And they will, you know what I mean? Like, basically, that's it. No one's trying to make you conform. They're like, you're a foreigner. And however you feel about that, if you're like, don't fight it. Utilize that room that they're giving you to then cultivate a life well lived on your own terms. That I believe is the wellness. And I think that is the space, the very fertile space for
Mm,
cultivating a life well lived. But it has nothing to do with how cheap the wine is
right.
here. I mean, it is excellent produce.
Mm,
You do have access to a healthcare system, but most foreigners like myself, we have private healthcare anyway. You got to pay for it. That's part of your visa.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, a lot of things that people try to hype up, that's not really the thing. The thing is that it frees up the resources and gives you the room for you then to redirect your labor into cultivating something that works for you, instead of having to expend your labor trying to explain to people why you are worthy or you deserve to be part of everyone else. I'm not othered. This is a different type of experience.
Yeah.
And so I
That's
think that's really important.
that's really powerful. Um, it's yes, stepping out of the context of United States racism and like racial dynamics frees up so much mental, physical, emotional, spiritual energy to, like you said, delve into those deeper questions. I like see so much, especially with everything that's happening politically, the survival mode that a lot of folks are in here. And that takes a lot of energy. Like, it's a laser focus. It's just like, I'm trying to survive, I'm trying to make it, I have bills, I have kids, I have responsibilities, and so there isn't that time to, and again, you're in the midst of this like systemic racialized context that's like based on nothing. It's just like made up terrible, and I mean 400 years of it, but like it's uh you're stuck in these boxes and these identities. And I love what you were just saying, this idea of being an other in a different place, and to like lean into that and not feel some kind of way about it, because I think there is probably like that knee jerk reaction to be like, excuse me, you know what I mean, like, feeling some kind of way about it. But it really does open the door for that self reflection and like seeing ourselves, and I think particularly as like what American privilege looks like outside of being a Black American in the United States, or like the ways that there's not particularly there's not that privilege here. And I think that that's something that we see people navigate in good ways and like, not so great ways sometimes. So I'm wondering, with the coaching you do, what are some of the things that really seem to come up for you, that people are concerned about? Because you're working with Black women. What are some of those concerns that come up, or like things that folks are grappling with as they're considering moves abroad? And is it that you're only working with folks who want to go to Spain, or is it just kind of like wherever they want to go?
I've worked with people who want to go wherever,
Okay.
not just Spain, but wherever. And I've coached people who don't identify as Black or as a woman.
Okay.
And I feel proud that I created a space where they asked very nicely before they were like, I really like your podcast, but I just want to see, is this available to me? Because I really want to talk to you. And I was like, wow, yes, yes, I will work with you. Come, come.
Come on,
Um,
branding.
yeah, and I appreciate that. And I think that's also, I mean, that's a conversation for another day when people, disparage like these Black spaces or like, why is it only for this? And I'm like, because we have the sauce, we have the nuance, and then people want to always go over our shoulder, be like, what y'all talking about? Actually, this is excellent. And I'm like, yeah, y'all should pay us, amplify
Okay.
us, and let us lead the way. You know what I'm saying?
Ashe.
Because my podcast is a lot of people's favorite podcast, and they don't identify as Black or woman, and they're like, no, this is that thing, and I'm like, I know it is,
I love that.
um I would say this, a lot of things that come up, because I do work with women, and a lot of things that come up is that negotiation with family.
Mm.
And that is quite difficult because I think, as we all know, women just bear the brunt of so much unseen, obviously undervalued emotional, physical labor in families, regardless if they have children, regardless if they have partners or not. Like, that's just the thing. And so a lot of women are like, I want to do something, but me doing something for myself and deciding to change my life is going to change other people's lives, and they don't like that.
Mm.
Or I don't know how to negotiate that with them. And I'm really curious about, and I write about this in the book, about Black girls' soft life, the thought about
Mm.
soft life, because I like it. I like it as an aesthetic. One, like,
Mm-hmm.
give me more cottage core, give me more Black women frolicking in lavender. Like, that's
Yes.
cute. I love that.
Yes.
But my thing is always, it has to go beyond pictures. It has to go beyond that type of representation. It has to become an embodiment. And
Mm-hmm.
that embodiment of soft life has nothing to do with sitting and eating bonbons. It has everything to do with holding yourself accountable and having boundaries and being okay, physically and mentally and emotionally okay, disappointing other people. And a lot of people never expect me to say that. They're like, I'm just gonna do what I want and it's gonna be soft life and ease. And I'm like, no, because a lot of y'all can't disappoint people. And that's where a lot of your burdens and your hard life comes from.
That's a word.
So I think that's one of the biggest things I work with these women. It's like, you want this soft life. Y'all listen to the podcast. Y'all know what I mean by soft life, but you're like, yeah, but I really just want to drink wine. Everybody thinks I just be like on the terrace, like drinking all day. And although my first year abroad, that was true, but I didn't have a podcast. So I'm not doing that. Okay. But a lot of people, I think they just think like Christine's just out there with the kava and da da da.
Of
Christine
course.
be in her house by this computer working. Okay.
Yes.
I will say, I open up my balcony doors. I will hear Spanish guitar, but I'm in Spain, okay? That will happen. That will happen.
Well,
That's what goes on.
sure.
But the soft life that people are craving has nothing to do with that, right? Because that's, you could get that on vacation. You want a life well lived. You
Mm.
want to experience parts of yourself you've never experienced, right? Maybe parts of yourself you never knew, like bear fruit that you didn't know that were inside of you.
Yeah.
That's part of soft life. Requires you to disappoint people,
Mm.
and it requires you to stop disappointing yourself. in the name of martyrdom, in the name of being a good daughter, in the name of fill in the blank, right? And I'm talking about this in the book because I go back to history and I look at the Great Migration, which is the migration of Black Americans from the South to the North and to the West, but also the Windrush generation from the Caribbean, from the Caribbean to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm mulling over this thought of to go abroad and be well, to have a soft life, if that's what you think, that that's your wellness, necessarily requires you to give up wellness, right? So the wellness that you could give up is one, being understood in your cultural context. Like the more I'm out, the more I'm abroad, the more I'm like, I am so Atlanta is ridiculous. And I don't know. Like the more I'm out, I'm like, I'm so Atlanta, I'm so Southern, I'm so Caribbean. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and people be like, you're a different type of American. I'm like, because I'm not just American as you understand it. I'm not Saved
Right.
by the Bell. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like,
Watch or whatever.
um, but if we look to history, when Black Southerners were leaving the South, fleeing the South because they were being racially menaced and terrorized, they were giving up wellness. One type of wellness, they were giving up their agrarian culture, right? Which was very much working with and on the land and living a life that was in sync with the seasons. Also, that deep communal living, the storied kind of lore and oral storytelling of that as well. To go to the north to pursue some type of peace, hopefully some equity and equality, but also aspiring to like white affluence, right? That was kind of said, this could be possible for you. But we all know that's not true because they moved the goalpost. So there's that. So you leave that behind to go up to the north to work in factories that, your physical well-being isn't dictated the same as it would be in agrarian culture of if you are well enough to work, right? So that's a different thing. You're disconnected from the seasons.
Right.
You don't work on the land, and you're not passing those really important like stories and history and knowledge of not only community but also land to your kids, so they don't know anything about home remedies and all these things. So now you're giving all those things up to be in a space where you're not going to ever attain, or not everyone's going to attain white affluence.
Mm-hmm.
um, you're disconnected, and now only maybe two generations people will be like, black farmers, that's new, and you're like, what the hell, the
Right.
hell, you know. So then the question comes, is the wellness you gave up worth the wellness that you sought and you received, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing could be asked of the Windrush generation, which is, I mean, that one's a little bit more complicated. You have deportations, you got a lot of craziness going on. But, you have these islands, you have these people who are deciding, I need to go back to Mother England and I need to help them rebuild after World War II. And my kids can have a better education. They're going to be, all these things. And then you have to ask yourself, as you're eating, beans and toast, and you're giving up mango and,
Oh,
some good
beaches.
food.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, now I know they
So
have their Caribbean cuisine up there, but,
not the same.
is the wellness worth it? And I think I bring that up because I think that's something for people to understand. And I talk to people about that. What would make it worth it? What would make whatever it is that you are giving up worth it? And
Mm-hmm.
that has to be the vision of the life well lived that you are actively cultivating, right? And you are aligning yourself, whether it be in a place, a certain type of value system, or what have you, that you are seeking and you are working towards. That's the type of reframe, or a type of mindset that you have to go abroad in order to make it worthwhile for you to be actually really real for yourself and not have these like, it's just gonna be better.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be better. You're like, better how,
Right.
And so that you don't sell yourself a dream. So I would say I have lots of other things I think people ask me about, but that is the core is
That's it.
what wellness are you willing to give up and what are you willing to do and what would make it worth it?
That's really timely, especially because I'm really appreciating the intentionality, and the like. I'm gonna take you on the like, 50,000 foot level, or like, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's like I'm gonna take you to the roots. Like, what is this really about for you? And I think especially now that's extremely important because we're in a fear cycle, particularly the realities of what is happening. And it's been interesting to watch over the last, what has been 6 months since the election, the US election. There was so much, literally like the day after the election, people were putting out just like really feeding that fear body of like, oh, you ready to leave? Like, come on and buy this course and do this thing and make your plans and call me. I'm a lawyer and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yo, calm down. You know what I'm saying? Like, just first of all, give people a minute to like process what's actually happening. But two, like, making decisions from that fear place is, regardless of what it is in your life, is never going to end up well. Like that's
Absolutely.
not wise. And so I'm really appreciating how you're like, no, there's layers and levels to this. There should, and again, I think you were very frank in saying, hey, I moved and I didn't really know what I was doing, but it was a process that you went through and worked through so that you can create a life that you love, so that you can live with intention, and that you can set yourself up for success in a myriad of ways. And what I'm really interested in is how this is the current US context
Mhm.
geopolitically. How is that impacting, the work with your clients and also your own life in Spain? And a friend of mine, she was on a previous episode of the podcast having this conversation about like Black women moving and living abroad. She's in Portugal, and she sent out an email and she was talking about like recent elections and how things went right, in terms of
Mhm.
of that piece. But at the same time, you know, reaffirming her, again, intentionality, her quality of life, but acknowledging the complexities of, you know, and I think this gets lost sometimes, is that what happens in the United States, especially us as Americans or, folks from the US, is going to impact global politics. So, to your point, you can go somewhere. One, you can't run away from yourself. If anything, like you said, yourself is going to be like, hey, girl, I'm here. You've been trying to outrun me, but also that how the politics of the United States, you can't really escape that either. So I'm curious what you're seeing in terms of clientele and just, daily life conversations, tariffs.
Yeah, I I have a lot more people who are interested in building businesses who are like, we've got to figure this out.
Mm,
I would say that um, how does it affect me? I mean, you nailed it. We live in an interconnected world in which the United States has been the top dog or one of the top dogs for a very long time, at least within our lifetime. And it's it is eye-opening. Well, not
mm,
eye-opening. I kind of expected some of these things, but one, a lot of people are recalibrating away from the United States, probably as they should have been doing. So there's that.
mhm.
Um, on the ground, though, I guess this is where being a Black American is so clutch because I swear you only feel the weight of being an American outside of the United States or the privilege of it.
Yes.
Because, when the day after the election, I went to one of my favorite bakeries and there was another giri, which is like I don't think it's derogatory, but it's a name for a foreigner. And he was like, "Yeah, it was just a horrible day. It was well," and I was just like, "All right, it was a white man, so it was
Mhm.
that."
Mhm.
Um, and then I get up there and they know me. They're like, "Oh, hey, Chrissy, da da da," and they're just like, "You okay?" And I was like, "I'm chilling." And they were like, "All right." I actually think that for at least like the younger generation, the generations here in Spain that actually interface with more foreigners, they
Mm.
understand the distinction of the experience between, or at least they are starting to understand the distinction, or there are distinctions between the experience of a Black American and a white American. So they're just like, wow, I can't believe these white people did this to y'all. Be like,
Okay.
y'all know what it is. But I think it does create a lot of concern, or there's a lot more pep in your step on some things, right? A lot of my friends around Europe were already gonna get second citizenships. And now we're like, oh, we gotta lock in. Gotta get a second,
Mm.
gotta get the second citizenship or the third. Like I'm in the process of getting my Trinidadian passport. So there's that. And also being even more proactive. When you live like in Southern Europe, I would assume it's similar in Portugal and Italy, but here in Spain, where things take 5 million years, like you have to be so proactive on things. So you're just like, you know what? Let me just go ahead and renew this early. You know what? Let me just go ahead and do that. Like I went and I sent off my passport to get renewed. Usually only takes like 2 weeks, if anything. And I'm like, oh, I don't know when this thing's gonna come back. I hope the embassy in Madrid gets it done. You know, I'm hoping it'll come back this week, but we will see. Like
Mm.
it requires you to really start thinking just even more strategically, you
Yeah.
know? So say this, since I've lived abroad, the United States has not only disappointed me, but broken my heart every year. And in a way that I know a lot of people are like, oh, just F the States and da da da. But I think you'll be surprised at how much connection you have to a place. And by their decisions, you're like, oh, so you really don't give a F about me. Oh, you really don't
Mhm.
F with me like that? You really don't F with me like for real, for real? Wow, wow. And
Right.
I feel like I've felt that every single year of living abroad.
Mm.
Um, I honestly say, I guess it was a bubble that I was in. I really wasn't in a social media bubble. Like I just voted. I did my early ballot and sent it off and was like, all right, y'all, I got, other things to do. Plus, in late October here in Valencia, we had these horrible floods. So like my brain was somewhere else. Like,
Yeah.
so when the elections happened, I was like, oh, so y'all really hate everyone. Like I was surprised or shocked. I was just like, oh, so you will burn down your house in order to F everyone over.
Hmm.
Huh, interesting. But that's the thing, like living abroad, you don't actually escape the politics of the United States. I mean, I had some friends that I know that were in taxis that were like, don't worry about Donald Trump. Give him some time. They're like, don't talk to me, taxi man. If you don't want me to run off with your fare, just
Okay.
be like that. And I mean, that's what's also so insidious is that this, nationalism, weirdness is an infection going around the world, and we'll just
Right.
see how far it spreads. A lot of countries have different safeguards that they're just not willing to go the way of the United States because they have like social safety nets. And people are like, oh wait, as soon as you start messing with my money, my pension,
My
my
healthcare.
health care, we everything will be ablaze. And they're
That's
actually
right.
about that, right?
That's
Um, so it's you can't escape it. You
Mm-hmm.
can't escape it at all. And I think that I mean I'm not a white American, so I can't speak for them, but what I would infer is that they're having a hard time, especially if they're abroad maybe, because they don't know a world where they're not the top dog. They're the top dog in America and in the world,
That's
right?
right.
So now they're like, wait, what if someone else is the top dog? What's gonna happen? And you're like, I'm like, I don't know, I'll learn Mandarin, I guess I'll be all right. Like, you know what I mean?
Figure it out.
But their assumption is that they're going to be oppressed, which I'm like, you tell on yourself every day. You tell on yourself every day. I'm just like, all right, so I'll learn Mandarin. I'll be all right. Like, I will figure it out, you know?
Mm, their
And I think
identity is challenged.
that's the thing. So I think, that's always an interesting when I do encounter white Americans, which I don't a lot. Uh, the ones that are really freaked out, they're like, "Oh my God, can you believe?" And da da da. I'm like,
Like, yeah, I can. I
"Yeah,
know
this feels,
history. I know life.
yeah.
Like,
This is the decadent period. The decadence of any country is a
that's right.
decline. This
That's
has
right.
to go down." They're like, "It can't possibly go down." I'm like, "It is."
It is. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. Yep. Well, on that note, I definitely this was so rich. Like I'm really grateful for this conversation at this time. And I feel like it's going to be really, really useful for, the listeners. And, I've had personal conversations with women that I've known for a long time about, have seen me kind of move and groove and be in different spaces and live in different countries and places, and are now starting to think about it, as safeguards for themselves. And so, how can folks, if they want to work with you, connect with you more? And I would encourage people to do that. I really do. I think that you have a lot to offer. I think your perspective is so important. Um, and you're doing like a legit service to help people prepare, and really be mindful, really be mindful, and again, like I've said this before, set them up for success. Because I was looking at threads, was it today, and there was a post that a friend tagged me in, and the person was saying, like, not enough people talk about the challenges of moving abroad, and particularly when you're dealing with things and you don't have and you said this earlier, the familiarity of a place, but also like your family, your besties, your, whoever, your person at the post office that or the mechanic that you love and you've known since you've been, 16. And that's not talked about enough. So how can folks work with you? How can they reach out to you? I'm gonna, of course, post the link to your podcast, which is fantastic. Um, tell the folks how to find you.
Yeah, but to your point, I think a lot of people talk about living abroad not being easy. It's just not what's sexy. It's not what is on TikTok. It's
Right.
not what's on the Reds or IG. It's not IG sexy. And a lot of people have to admit that they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear that, right?
That's right.
Um, they don't want to hear that they will have to get some resilience and move on or stay home.
Or
So
confront themselves, like you said.
right, like you got to be curious and you got to have resilience. I'll also say that those of you who are thinking about moving abroad, I want you to think about it as how it may affect your lineage,
Mm,
right? And a lot of people don't think like that. My grandmother moved to the United States in the 70s. I would not exist if she had not done that. Like
mm,
straight up, okay? So think about how that will change your lineage and just think about how you feel about that, right? And a lot of people don't think about migration like that. Like if you're from Chicago, but your family is really from Mississippi, think about how you living in Chicago changed things. And that's only one or two generations. Or you from Louisiana, or
mhm,
your family's from Louisiana, but you live in California. Like think about that.
mhm.
Because it's the same. It's not a vacation,
That's right.
right? And to your point, we didn't really get to talk about it, but living abroad as a pathway to wellness is one thing. Living abroad as a pathway to liberation is also something very different as well, right?
Mm,
Liberation is a praxis, I think, and living abroad can be that praxis, but it has to be um, exercised and it has to be something that's fitted for you. But you have to want to get free as well. You can't want to move to Portugal and try to bring and recreate Atlanta. Okay? There's only one Atlanta. Forever I love Atlanta. No matter the slander people have of my city. I know the real city, okay? Forever I love Atlanta. But you cannot expect that and you cannot want to do that because you are then participating in American imperialism. And a lot of Americans and a lot of Black Americans don't understand that we are steeped in it. So you have to be cognizant to be able to even try to unlearn and not to replant that, right? That goes into colonization, that goes into, gentrification. Can Black people participate? Black people can be American imperialists, but
yes.
that's a conversation for another day, right?
We'll come
So,
back to that another time. I will have you back on because I talk about this all the time, all the time.
girl, and I will come back and gladly talk to you about it because
Ashe.
that's what I'm like. People want this book, and I'm like, I don't know if you're gonna like this book because I'm going to say what I feel. You know what I
Lay it,
mean?
lay it
It's not
out.
going to be like how to move abroad. That's not the book.
No.
Liberation, especially within a context of a systematized racial caste system of the United States, which, I mean, you could extrapolate to other parts of the world, but we'll stay with the United States. Why would you want to take that abroad, but you're going to say minus the racism when we know that there's nothing minus the racism because the racism is the whole point. Therefore, moving abroad, living abroad as a pathway to liberation has to be an act of daydreaming, dreaming of something new, a different paradigm, and then building it into that vision. That's what you have to seek. If not, you just want to go on vacation, which is fine. Just go on vacation and go back to the States. Don't expect it to be Emily in Paris. You are not white. You know, anti-blackness is global.
Global.
Uh, there's a lot of things going on. Can you leverage your, there's a talk about can you not be an American imperialist and leverage your American passport? It's a conversation I'm willing to have, and I have it in my book too
Good.
about how to leverage privilege, and is it Black people can never leverage their privilege and da 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 da. I have thoughts on that. People might disagree, but I feel like, get in where you fit in, but
Right.
being conscious and be able to utilize the tools that you have in order
Yes.
to recreate and reimagine and create a space of where you can dream, a place where you can actually rest, a
Yes.
place where you can experience a soft life that again has something that's more than consumerism. And I love
Yes.
consumerism. I always tell people before the Target strike, I was like, I miss Target. I miss just going in there and buying things I don't need.
Don't need.
Um, I miss it. So there's
Yep.
that, but soft life is not consumerism. For
Right.
it to be sustainable, for it to be impactful for Black people, Black women, it has to be embodiment. And the embodiment is a paradigm shift, it's a mind shift, it's boundaries with yourself, it's discipline with yourself on how you're going to behave and act, and how are you going to leverage your time, your energy, your attention, your labor, and how you're going to intentionally execute those and enact those. So I said all that to say that if that sounds interesting to you, because this is what you're gonna get. If you want something else, go to somebody else. If you're looking for, I don't know, because generally anyone else I follow in the space are legit people. But if
Yep.
you're looking for something like move abroad in 30 days or some
Right.
nonsense,
A
go to
checklist.
that. Okay.
Hmm.
Like do that. That's not what this is. If you want to work with me, I have a course, I have a one-on-one program, which I am going to discontinue in 2025. So if y'all want to get in, come on.
Get on it
Um,
right now.
Come on. If you want to start off slow, get my Move Abroad with Intention guide. You can get that at flourishintheforeign.com for all my guides. I'm actually going to put up some more resources that I have up there. If you want to work with me one on one, you learn about that at flourishintheforeign.com. If you want to get on my book waitlist, you can get that at flourishintheforeign.com. If you want to learn more about my book and more about my personal, what I'm calling truths and musings, you can join my Substack, which I'll be way more active on once I finish this season of my podcast, which ends at the end of April, which I'm very happy. I love the podcast, but I gotta wrap it up. I gotta wrap it up. Um, Come and find me there. And if you want to learn more about business strategy and my personal thoughts on business, especially with women, Black women, and women of color, leveraging our own intellectual property, our experiences to build assets for ourselves that can finance this soft life, that can finance this life well lived, get at me, christinejob.com. And if you want me to speak at your organization or your whatever, I do paid speaking engagements as well. You can learn more at christinejob.com. And
Yes.
of course, listen to my podcast, Flourish in the Foreign. It is award winning, it is
Mhm.
critically acclaimed. It is that girl. I'm very
Yeah.
proud of that. By the end of this season, I'll have 151 episodes, and I don't know how that happened. Girl, I do not even know.
That's
Don't
huge.
know, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the stories, especially this season, season 6. We started talking about aging abroad. That
Mm.
was a hit. We're going to bring that back. Really getting into what it means to live well abroad, age well abroad, and just everything that these women have have journeyed through. And I'm really
Mhm.
grateful that they feel comfortable to share that with me and I can safeguard these stories. And
Yes.
so that is, I think those are all my things, I think.
That's all all fantastic. A myriad of ways folks can engage with you, work with you, collaborate, learn from you. And I'm so happy that you ended it on this note of liberation. Because fundamentally, I think that's uh, something obviously that's close to my heart, but I think that that's what a lot of our work is in service of, and a lot of what we're tapping into the needs of that kind of liberatory expansiveness and in our thinking, in our ways of being, in the conversations that we're having. Again, taking it out of the to-do list and taking it out of the like this tactical things, but really internalizing and sitting with what does liberation mean for us personally and collectively, um, and how there's momentum with us everywhere around the world, as much as there is nationalism, authoritarianism, etc. Like, we come from liberatory people. Our ancestors were dedicated to liberation, and we are an extension of that. And how we can do that and incorporate that lens and framework into our day-to-day lives and in the lives that we create feels like incredibly important, timely work. So thank you so much. I'm so full after our conversation today, for sure.
Oh, thank you. I'm always so happy to speak with people who resonate with the message and who I get to, I mean, I speak freely no matter what, but who are gonna catch it, you know what I mean? Some people are just like, I heard soft life and that's what I'm about. And I'm like, and that's fine. You know, however it can get in, I'll let it get in. So
Right.
it's okay.
Right. It's, pick your point of entry, and again, since it is newly spring, is planting seeds, right? So,
Yes.
we plant seeds and shine our light and let go of the rest, and let people, enjoy their journeys and their entry points, and their sprouts and their harvests. So I'll end on the farming analogies, which I'm also grateful you brought back, that the black farmers, and the agrarian culture. Like, there's so many things we could dive into. I'm trying to shut this podcast because it's been over an hour and I want people to, stick in and listen to it. But we'll definitely reconvene and talk again. And I'll definitely be listening to the Aging Well Abroad series for sure, for sure. So thank you again for listening to this episode of Spirit in the Material World, here with Christine Job. I'm Jana Zinzi, also known as Jazz. Please take care of yourself and others. Peace until next time.